guys, welcome back. It's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about a series of trades and transactions that I had made, which ended up being okay at the end, but along the way I ran into some troubles and the deal almost went a little sideways. And so I'm gonna kind of talk you through what that looks like. But where we begin the story today is with a three-wheel drift bike. Some of you may be familiar. They're basically a tricycle that has a lawnmower engine strapped to the back end of that. And then you'd put PVC pipes over the back tires so that there's no traction. So you give it some gas and you start to spin. They're perfect for drifting and they're a lot of fun, tons of fun. Mine was super dangerous. I didn't ride it much. It was too fast for what it was. My streets in my neighborhood aren't super wide. And so I was always concerned I was going to crash into the curb and fly off the trike or hit a car or something like that. So I used it a few times. I raced up and down the street a little bit here and there, and it was a lot of fun, but dangerous. And my kids were too little to really enjoy it either. So I ended up putting it on Craigslist for sale. And what ended up happening was a kid found it and had to have it. He had a 1986, I think. I'm sorry, 1983. I'm remembering this better now. A 1983 Ford Mustang GT is a Fox Body, and it had the square headlights, and it was kind of the original Fox Body cars. But it had a very heavily built 302. So when he offered me that trade, I think I had to kick in $500 or something like that. And the car itself was pretty rough, but the engine was where the money was. And I valued my drift trike at about $1,500 to $1,700. So, all in all, I wasn't into the drift trike for that. But adding the 500 cash, getting that Fox Body with the 302, my thoughts were that 302 was much more heavily built than the one you see right here behind me. So I told my wife I only made the trade for the motor. That was true, but then about that time I was getting this car running and it was just more work than it was really worth to swap the motors. So what I ended up doing was doing kind of a cosmetic upgrade to the Fox Body. And, realistically, I was able to salvage the body. I had to do some body work a little bit here and there, fix a couple dents and dings. I kind of redid most of the interior as best as I could with what I had. And then I was able to put it back on Craigslist for sale or for trade. And obviously I wanted to make some money. So I think I was into that car just a couple $100 more than the trade price. I took, one thing that's really rare on those original Fox Bodies are the headrests on those front buckets. They're called halo headrests and they have kind of a mesh. The headrest itself is kind of a rectangle and it's got a kind of a mesh inside, and generally that mesh stretches or tears or goes bad and just gets brittle and breaks. And these ones were fantastic. The seats themselves were torn, but those headrests were in great condition. So I was able to salvage those and pulled them out of the seats, put them on eBay and sold them very, very quickly for my buy it now. And after doing a bunch of research, I found that they were worth quite a bit of money. So what I ended up doing then was finding pretty much for the cost of what I sold those halo headrests for, I found a set of matching black racing buckets, put those in the car. In the meanwhile, I had changed out the stereo deck, and got a dash pad cover because I had some cracks in it and things like that. Just make it more aesthetically pleasing. Steering wheel cover, and I think I put a brand new back seat cover on the little fold down chair in the back, or the seat in the back. I plasti dipped the entire car. And so you'll see that photo here. And, so I did it kind of the original color scheme, different colors. I like the blue. I really think Mustangs look great in blue. So I did blue with the white down the middle. I did get the factory 5.0 logos, all the badges and decals and things, the GT decals and things, and made the car look aesthetically really, really pretty. I was very pleased. I refinished the wheels. Tires had really good tread on them. Just a really nice, complete car. Had a ton of power. It was really kind of scary to drive. But put it on Facebook and Craigslist, and somebody on Craigslist found it and wanted to trade me a Jeep Wrangler. So that's really where the story kind of goes. That Jeep Wrangler was a blast. It was a great daily driver. It got me from A to B. I cruised around town. It was during the summer, so the top was never on the thing. Just all around really great trade. I did fix that Jeep up a bunch. I added all sorts of stuff. I put brand new interior in it. I put new Corbeau racing buckets and racing harnesses. I did do a new back seat. I got the family style roll cage as opposed to the little sport bar that just kind of goes over the driver and the passenger. I got a new bikini top for the top, as well as the whole safari top, which is basically the same. It just goes over the entire thing. So when my kids were in the back seat, they were under the cover as well. I fabricated a tire carrier for some gas cans and my spare tire. The list goes on and on. I got Rubicon wheels and tires off of a brand new Rubicon that literally had 10 miles on them, brand new pull-offs. You know, lots of other things, light bars, and, you know, I bedlined some of the interior and I bedlined the grill and, you know, all these different things. I ended up getting a roof basket for it, and I had a pop-up tent for up on top as well, and really made it pretty fun, very capable for off-roading. It had a little bit of a lift on it from the prior owner, but again, with those oversized Rubicon wheels and tires, it looked really great. And I'm going to post a bunch of pictures on this video here so you can kind of see what it looked like. But when I traded it, I was browsing Facebook Marketplace, and a guy had a 2003 BMW 325 convertible, and it was the CI 325 CI, I believe. And it was in excellent condition. Turned out I actually knew the seller. We'd run into each other. He was a customer of mine in a prior business, and just a super nice guy. And he was looking for a four-wheel drive truck or Jeep to trade. So knowing what I was into the Jeep, which wasn't very much, it was a great opportunity to kind of trade up. Now the Jeep at this point wasn't completed. It was still kind of a white, off-white primer. The interior wasn't totally done. You know, it was still kind of a work in progress. But he didn't really care. He liked the idea of a Jeep. He thought it would be really fun, and went ahead and wanted to make that trade with me. So I did the trade, and he came and test drove the Jeep, really enjoyed it, drove it around my neighborhood. And on his way home, I get a text from him, and he was concerned the tranny was slipping. So I'm not sure exactly what happened, but he got home and crawled under the Jeep, and it was just dumping transmission fluid. And so he took a ton of pictures, and obviously didn't want to drive it, but obviously wasn't really happy with our trade, even though we gave each other bills of sale that said this is a done deal as is, you know, whatever, no warranties expressed or any of those things. And he did test drive it. So I felt terrible, but at the same time, I had no idea what happened because I had been driving it around all summer long and never had a problem with it, ever. And so, you know, part of me was a little skeptical, but I wanted to make it right for him, which, you know, again, I didn't really have to do, but I felt somewhat obligated. So my first inkling was, well, let's just trade back. You know, obviously I wasn't thrilled with that because I was gonna have to put a new transmission in the Jeep, but I wanted to make it right for him. And he insisted, no, let's not do that. If we can work on coming to an agreement to replace the transmission, since I was gonna have to replace it anyway, I think he thought that, you know, if I kicked a little bit of money back on a new transmission for him, that would justify keeping the trade. So what I ended up doing was contacting a mechanic friend of mine who's done a bunch of work on my Mustangs and other cars along my, you know, driving life, if you will. And he's always been a great, reliable guy. Well, he said, yeah, absolutely. I can put in the transmission. I won't charge you a whole bunch or whatever. And he actually drove out to the guy's house, who lives about 20 miles away, and crawled under the Jeep, and sure enough, found the problem. He ended up pulling the Jeep transmission out and took it back to his shop here in Redmond, and went ahead and started diving into it to see if he could figure out what the problem was. By the time we chatted about it a few days later, it looked as if it was not going to be salvageable. The cost of rebuilding was going to exceed that of buying a new rebuilt transmission. And at that point, I just needed this Jeep running. I really wanted to make it right for this guy. And so what I did was a ton of research on the transmission to make sure I was getting the right one, because there's several different options in those. It's a YJ Wrangler. And what ended up happening was I found one in a Jeep Cherokee, and the Jeep Cherokee had a blown engine, but the transmission was perfect. So I bought the entire Jeep, ended up pulling the transmission out, putting it into the Jeep, and it ended up being kind of a wash. I think I bought the busted Jeep with the good transmission for $500, and then sold the busted Jeep without a transmission. In fact, we put the bad transmission in the trunk, and I sold it as is with no transmission and a bad engine, bad transmission for $500. And so it ended up getting a free transmission out of the deal. I just had to pay labor on the swap. A little while later, the guy still was having problems, and my mechanic couldn't get to him fast enough. He went several months without the Jeep, and I finally just said, listen, we need to trade back. As much as I love the BMW, I really don't want to trade you back, but I want to make it right. So we did. I drove the car out to him and left it with him, and then later caught a ride with my wife, and then went out to my mechanic's place and kind of told him what happened. I just said, listen, fix it, at your convenience. There's no major urgency. It's kind of an extra vehicle, whatever. He still got to it within another week or two and gave the Jeep back to me. So while I had that 325, I wanted to make it my own, just like anything else. I didn't want to keep it stock. I didn't want to keep it the way he had it. So there were several little things that I did. First thing I did was wheels and tires. Detailed the interior. I did put a little lip spoiler on the back. I put clear reflectors all the way around, getting rid of kind of that amber and red reflector on the corners. I want to say I can't remember if I did do the taillights or not. I wanted to get the upgraded LED taillights, which I don't recall doing actually, now that I think more about it. But I did put a front chin spoiler, a lip underneath there, and upgraded to projectors with halo headlights with LED bulbs, and upgraded the fog lights as well. So I did quite a bit to the car in a matter of a month and a half or 2 months that I had it and I was driving it. And when I traded it back to him, I left all that stuff on there. I wasn't gonna pull any of that stuff off. I just felt like I got my use out of that car, and I kind of wanted to make up for it when I went to sell the Jeep Wrangler after I got it back. So, after compiling spreadsheets and receipts and figuring out what my true cost is into the Jeep and the BMW, minus anything that I sold off along the way, I came out way, way, way ahead. That Jeep Wrangler ended up costing me literally $0. When I bought it, it came with a bunch of accessories that I ended up not using. I did end up buying a few bits and pieces that I ended up not using, and then resold them for a little more. And I made some trades along the way with other things that I had zero cost into or whatever. And so my true out-of-pocket cost on that Jeep was $0. Once I added in what I spent on that BMW, I think I was only into that BMW about $1,100 or $1,200. And I do have the spreadsheet someplace, I'd have to locate it. But let's say $1,200 I was into that BMW. So obviously when I went to sell the Jeep, I was going to get more than $1,200. So, all things being fair, I did sell the Jeep for about $6,000 and less the cost I was into that BMW. I made almost $5,000 on that Jeep. And yeah, it was quite a bit of a headache, but I did drive it for several months before trading it. And then I drove it for a few months after getting it back. And when I got it back, it had a paint job on it. The guy that I made the trade with, he took it in that off-white kind of crappy primer, and he had the Jeep painted black, and it was sweet. It looked really, really nice. And all the accessories were gray or black, and it all flowed together super nicely. So again, it was kind of a weird deal. It was a multi-progressional trade sequence to get there. And that Fox Body Mustang was a blast for the short time that I had that. That was only maybe a 3-month deal. I got that, basically did what I did to it over a few weekends, and then put it up for sale or trade, and was able to get a pretty good deal right off the bat. So, again, another sequence of good events that turned out, but I didn't necessarily rush into anything. I did do my homework on every part that I bought for either the Fox Body or for the Jeep. I definitely shopped around and got the best prices I could. And then of course, doing as much labor as I can myself. Now I wasn't ready to dive into a transmission exchange, but everything else on that Jeep I did, everything on that Fox Body Mustang I did. So I didn't have a ton of money into any sort of expenses outside of just parts. You know, all the labor and time was just my own. So I felt pretty good about that. And yeah, again, those were all fun vehicles that in a perfect world, I'd have loved to keep them, right? I mean, I would love to cruise around in another little BMW convertible. And I think that's part of the reason I wanted that Z3. And the Jeep Wrangler is just a fun off-road toy. I mean, you can drive it on roads, you can take it around town, I can commute to work, but it's super off-road capable. And so, you know, finding a dirt road someplace or a trail or a river to cross or whatever the heck I want to do with it, you know, it's just fun. I can't do that in this. I mean, I could do that in my Raptor, I suppose, but, you know, again, that's a different animal. It has the top on it, it has doors on it, you know, all those things. So anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate your feedback. If you can, comment down below. Always like and subscribe. I really want some ideas for new content. You know, the more I can post, the better, but also follow me on Instagram. I'd love that. I share all sorts of fun stories and things. I do share some financial tidbits and things like that on there, but generally it's mostly car related. So like always, I appreciate you, and may every investment you make be a good one.